Mansoor, the man making moves over in Raw these days. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely delighted to have you. And man, speaking of that, right? You're still only what 25, I believe,
Yeah, 25 years old, soon to be 26 in October.
and you've already made the moves. Triple H long said about like local globalization and all of that stuff. And I guess you're one of the first real pieces of evidence of that, right? Making the journey from Saudi Arabia, like all the way to the main roster in WWE. Like, I guess, is it still a pinch yourself kind of thing sometimes that you're at the beginning of your journey, but still the strides you've made are amazing.
I think that a lot of people say that wrestlers kind of hit their peak in their early to mid 30s. And I understand why, because it's sort of a mix between, well, are you still physically able to do all the things that you would normally be able to do, but also that level of experience and intelligence comes a long way. And particularly because, like, as a 25-year-old in WWE, where previously before signing here, I figured, yeah, I think I'll get to WWE eventually, maybe when I'm 30, 31, 32. And then out of completely nowhere, finding out about the Saudi tryout and being thrust into this situation because, I had to take that opportunity as a 25-year-old in this company and kind of being put into this position. It's almost like, I don't even know who I am yet. So how am I
Yeah.
supposed to present a sort of a character or larger than life presentation to the world? I think that's kind of been the hardest part of this transition is sort of, when people ask me like, well, who is Mansoor? It's like, I don't know. I'm hoping sort of that the experiences and the life lessons that I learn on the way, hopefully to success, will help me, further along down the line. So, I'm no like Tyler Bate, Pete Dunne. Those guys were here, before they could even drink or drive, or rent a car. So, but yeah, I'm kind of up there in terms of the youth of the roster. So, there's good and bad.
Let's talk about that then. Like you said, the tryout being in Saudi and stuff. And I understand that you had wrestled like a bit before the tryout, so you weren't like completely new or anything like that. Just give us a bit of a background on how long you'd been wrestling when this opportunity arose and how the wheels got turning.
Sure, yeah. So I grew up in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia until I was about 11 years old, and then I moved to the United States, where I was blessed and lucky enough to actually be able to pursue my dream and get professional wrestling training, starting in my senior year of high school. So I would be about 17 or 18 years old. Um, that was instrumental for me in laying that foundation of experience. Because when that tryout eventually occurred, right after I graduated from college, I was the only person at the tryout with experience, which was a huge boon for me.
Mm.
I was living in San Francisco at the time with my current wife, who at the time was my girlfriend from college. And I was working as, do you know what an escape room is?
Yeah, man, we have them in the UK.
Yeah, yeah. I was working as as an escape room employee, as kind of like I would act in the scenarios where like, oh my God, you have to escape this jail. And I'd be the cop being like, you're not gonna get out of here alive. Right. So it was a fun little job. And on the side, I would do my indie bookings, which were sort of not, I wouldn't say few and far between, but it was definitely sort of a weekend gig. I wasn't being flown out to do any indies. I wasn't a big deal. I was just kind of getting my footing in. It was my first year of full-time professional wrestling on the independents. So I was excited to sort of make a name for myself and establish, who I am on the independent scene. And then out of nowhere, my older brother, who introduced me to professional wrestling, Bilal, he sent me the link to the article saying that there was going to be a tryout for WWE in Saudi Arabia. And I was like, whoa, like, that's really weird.
Yeah.
But they're not going to want me, right? And he was like, of course they're going to want you. Like, you need to apply now. And I was like, nah, I don't think it's worth it. Like, which is so bizarre to say now, but at the time, like, you have to understand that sort of like pessimism is sort of innate in an indie wrestler, especially
Sure.
one at my size. You think, oh, they want bodybuilders, they want, MMA guys, stuff, football players, stuff like that. Almost like you don't, kind of hard to explain. It kind of sounds lame, but it's almost like you're scared that if you try and fail, you're never going to live it down.
Mm.
I was almost worried that if I had my tryout so early in my career, I wasn't going to be ready. and then that was gonna perhaps taint or influence their perception of me down the line, because my plan was, in the far future to get into the company. I don't know if I was ready. So he was like, you know what, screw you, I'm gonna fill it out for you. So he filled out the application for me. He sent it out. My older sister helped me get it along too, because she knew somebody. So a lot of people don't know this. The tryout in Saudi Arabia, actually the talent for that tryout wasn't found by WWE. It was through Saudi Arabia and their program. So as soon as that application went out and it got into the right hands, I got a call saying, you need to come here ASAP. Like, can we get you on a plane next week? You're the only guy who's done this before. We need you here. And I was like, oh, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I guess I'll just. I told my boss at the escape room, and he was like, yeah, you're going to go do that. I was like, sweet. So I flew over. I met up with my dad and my brothers and my sister and my family over there. And that whole process was amazing, because it was the first time I got to actually stand in a WWE ring and feel that and feel what it was like, and perhaps have my dreams come true. And I know that's so cliche and cheesy, but it's kind of hard to explain that feeling when you think it's not going to happen for so long, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, because of some random opportunity, you're there. And I treated that process, I think it was about a week of days of trying out. I treated that like if I was never going to get this opportunity again and I failed, I could never live with myself. So I pushed myself past the limit that I even knew was possible. There were guys way more athletic than me, way stronger than me, maybe even way more charismatic than me. But every single thing I did, promos, conditioning, strength training, I gave 150% of myself, because I knew that I had to, because I treated it like my last chance. And thank God I'm here now. So yeah, it's been a wild ride.
It all worked out, my friend.
Yeah.
I mean, once you get the green light and stuff, is that like a Triple H conversation? Like, did he give any wisdom to you early doors?
I mean, he was there. Yeah, he came towards the end. He got to meet everybody there and speak to everybody there, and kind of tell us, this is an amazing opportunity. Like, not to waste it. I was selected among, I think, 3 or 4 other guys who were ultimately on that show, which was right after the tryout. We got the opportunity to do something, pretty special and go out there when we weren't even signed yet. And we were told that there was no guarantee we would even get signed. So even walking around backstage, I was walking on eggshell. Actually, I don't know if I should tell the story. This is
you started it now. Come on, brother.
Okay, so we were sort of in a little small locker room, me and the other Saudi boys. Well, actually, it was me, the Saudi boys, and the sumo wrestler that they had for the Battle Royal, for the Greatest Royal Rumble. We were sharing that, and they were like, okay, you're going to go to that bathroom over there, right? Down the hall. So that's the bathroom that I used, all the boys used, right? So then the next time we were in Saudi, right? This was for the biggest Battle Royal.
Yeah.
I was going to that bathroom because that was the bathroom that I knew that we used, right? That's the one I go to. So I walk in and I go into the stall, I do my business. It's one of those horrible automatic flush toilets, which I hate because, I like to adjust, right? And every time I move an inch, it flushes. So, it seems like I'm giving birth in there, right? So that's happening. And I walk out, and who do I see to my right sitting? Because there's a few lockers here. It's sort of like a small locker room with 3 stalls. But there's Shane McMahon.
Wow.
And I'm seeing him there. I'm like, oh, he's got his bags out. I'm like, oh, hey, how's it going? And he's like, he looks at me with the most confused face. He's like, hey, man. I'm looking at my hands. I'm like, oh, I can't shake his hand, right? Like, obviously.
Yeah.
So I go over and I wash my hands, right? And then I look over at the towels and they're out. So now my hands are wet. I'm like, sorry. And he's like, oh, no, it's okay. So then I go to walk out the door and he goes, hey, wait a minute. I stop and I freeze in a cold sweat. And I look over and he says, who are you? And I go, I'm Mansoor. And he goes, okay, nice to meet you, man. I'm Shane. Cool, man. Nice to meet you. And I walk out. I'm like, God, that was so weird. Like, I totally bungled that interaction. Like, I didn't shake his hand. I wasn't respectful, but then it was all weird. And then I realized, I went, wait a minute. I go back. I look to the side of the door and there's a piece of paper that says, Shane McMahon's locker room.
Oh wow.
I'm like, oh no.
Have you had a
I
chance to
just,
see him since?
I just took a dump in Shane McMahon's locker
Ah,
room. But no, he's super cool. After the battle royal and after I cut my promo, like he was in Gorilla and he came over to me and he shook my hand. And he was like, "Hey man, you did a great job. That was awesome." So I was like, "Oh, thank God, we're good." Because there's so many opportunities to get heat when you when you first go up. And me being a complete and total bumbling idiot, I thought that was going to be it for me. So yeah, that was pretty embarrassing.
that's such a great story. I'm so glad we prized it out of you, my friend.
Yeah, I might be less happy.
Well, I mean, you just said it about it then, man. The Battle Royal win. I remember watching that show, and like, you know, uh, not to do you a disservice or anything, but I remember Buddy Murphy in Australia. Like that was a massive thing for him when he defended or he won the cruiserweight title there, and like getting those moments in front of your home fans is like, once in a lifetime stuff. And literally at the beginning of your career, that is such a monumental moment. The crowd went literally crazy when you won that battle royal. Like, can you briefly explain to me, like, A, being told you're going to win it? I bet you was like, really? And B, when the moment it happens, man, because like I said, that atmosphere, like, you're going to remember that for the rest of your life.
Yeah, so it was very bizarre. I remember we were all in this huge locker room. Really was more of like a indoor field because there were so many guys there. And Jamie Noble is talking about the battle royal to everybody in it. Of course, it's the biggest battle royal in WWE history, 50 man, which ended up being 51 or whatever. So we're all standing there. Jamie Noble's like, okay, here's the order of elimination, here's that, and then the final five, and then yeah. And then you hear Heath Slater in the crowd going, "Who's winning this thing?" And Jamie Noble goes, the NXT kid. And everybody's like, huh? Heath Slater, who the hell's the NXT kid? And then Jamie points at me standing in a corner, and suddenly I feel eyes like daggers. That was rough, man. I would, God, it's tough, man. It's tough. Everybody's away from their families. They had to
Yeah.
travel for 12 hours. And, the last thing you want to hear is that some kid nobody even knows is winning this thing. So yeah, that was kind of awkward. But, like I said, like guys like Mustafa and, a lot of guys were really nice and cool. And nobody was like mean to me. Like even me, like I was being sort of disrespectful because I was so intimidated and I was so kind of taken aback. I didn't even take the time to go to each and every person in the locker room, shake their hands, and introduce myself because I was so like, I don't even want to bother these people. I don't think they want anything to do with me. And Mustafa was actually a person who came up to me and was like, "Hey man, like I really appreciate if you shook everyone's hand and said hello to everybody." And I was like, "Oh yeah, 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 absolutely." Like that's kind of the mind,
I know.
fudge.
I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's tough with wrestling. Is like sometimes you have to do the right thing. You got to get over your insecurity and your discomfort and just do it and just do the etiquette and what's proper and right. For locker room etiquette. So thankfully, thanks to him, that's what I did.
You mentioned
Um,
Mustafa Ali. Sorry, I just wanted to
yeah, no
interject
worries.
because that's an awesome segue. I know we haven't got a lot of time left, so I did want to find the time to talk about Ali and yourself because I'm very much enjoying that kind of blossoming thing you two have. That's been a couple of backstage segments on Raw. It's kind of left me like, yeah, I really hope that they kind of get together because Ali's obviously awesome in so many different ways. Um, is that something that you hope for your character as well, like working closely with Ali? Be it rivals in the ring, a team, because like once you come up, I mean, I think you was 49-0, and then that kind of was just like, oh, he's not unbeaten anymore. So A, was the record like a thing? Like, because I think fans knew it was a thing, but was that
Yeah.
discussed as a thing before your Raw debut? And B, Ali, man, what's your hopes?
No, it was absolutely not a thing. I didn't even really like. I remember when I realized that I hadn't been losing, I was like, "This is weird. Like, what's going on around here?" And then some fan was like, "Hey, did you know that you haven't like lost since like August of last year? Like, you're like 30-0." And I was like, "No, I didn't know that." And then it kind of like part of me was like, "Okay, like what's going on around here? Like, what's the purpose for this?" it even came a point where I would actually go to people in the office. I won't say who, but I would go to people in the office and say, please, I want to lose. Let me let me lose. I'm begging you. I want to put this guy over. And they're like, no. And I think something that might have had to do with it is a conversation I had with Vince McMahon in Saudi Arabia where he was like, we're going to get you gearing up to join us on the main roster. And I think maybe the pandemic might have stalled that. But for whatever reason, it was very much, it took a while. And I think that maybe because those plans were in motion, there might have been some kind of edict, you know what I mean? So
Sure.
I don't know too much about the inner workings of the politics. Um, so eventually, sort of as like a rib, I was like, "Hey, check it out, guys! I'm undefeated. I'm the new Goldberg," which is so silly. And then, of course, when I debut on Raw, I lose by DQ. Just like what?
Not even a loss.
Yeah. No, I truly, it did not. It didn't bother me one bit. I did not care about that streak. I mean, it's like I always say, like, um, you can. I would rather lose every week than win occasionally. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to be a part of Raw. Like, I just want to be on every week. I want to work and wrestle every week. I want to be a part of storylines and sagas. And like this thing with Mustafa Ali, I think is amazing because it has so much potential to go a certain way. Like what I really like about it is that there's intrigue. Like it's not a straight up like it could have been. I could have had a match one day and then Mustafa could have ran in, beat me up, and said, "You're who I was 2 years ago, and I'm going to teach you a lesson." No, it's not that. It's him coming to me and trying to be a mentor.
Yeah.
And me not immediately opening up to him, so that there's that question of is Mansoor gonna go with Mustafa and turn to the dark side, or maybe is Mansoor gonna imbue that optimism and hopefulness that he has and change Ali back to the light, so to speak, as corny as that sounds. I think it's cool that there's that avenue and that crossroads, because then every time we share a ring together, fans are going to be like, is this the day that something happens? Something going to happen? You know what I mean? I love that. That's what I love about WWE and wrestling, is that it's that live storytelling where you don't know what's going to happen. It could happen any week and you might even be there for it. So I'm really excited for that. And I couldn't ask for a better partner than Mustafa in this story, who is such a professional and such a just incredible performer.